This podcast is recorded on Aboriginal land. We pay our respects to elders past and present and recognise that sovereignty was never ceded. Welcome back to the Radical Online Leftist Pipeline Podcast. I'm back after a week off. It's me, Mitch Alexander.
I'm Celeste Little. I think I'm second this week.
I think so. I'm Jordan Vanden Lam. No Tom. He's now deceased instead of Mitch this week.
I do like that for some reason, like when one of us is away, it's always like, oh, they're away or they're not here. Unless it's Tom, in which case the default definitely seems to be just joking about how he's dead. I don't know why.
Tom's passed away again.
He's really got to get that work out.
This is what happens after decades of cuts to Medicare, you lot.
Big forward. You could be Tom.
It's election season, so what we do need those black and white attack ads of us like looking really like sad or angry with like holding framed photos of Tom. Like due to cuts to healthcare, our friend Tom has died
passed away.
4 times in the last 12 months.
It's those advance ads that make the Greens look fucking sick.
I know. Yeah, I think we might have even talked about this on an earlier episode, but I went onto the Advance website. The front website that they had these billboards out for a while being like, Greens, don't risk it. And then these anonymous quotes being like, I felt like I might have been bullied if I stayed in the Greens, so I quit or whatever. They have this website set up that I can't find now, which is fucked.
Oh yeah, no, I do remember that. Wasn't that the Sam stuff?
Yeah, there was a whole bunch of there was dirt, quote unquote, on a whole bunch of Greens politicians. But to flesh out their dirt page file with a list of sources, they eventually, at the bottom of the page, started to get into stuff from overseas Greens parties. So there was stuff that the German Greens were doing and whatnot. But one of them, I think it was the British Greens, was before he got into politics, this Greens member had sex with someone in a nightclub and did some coke. It's like, that's sick as hell. What are you talking about? Yeah. Like a normal person did something cool and then got into politics. Okay, sick. What are you fucking doing?
Yeah, imagine a Liberal politician going to a club.
Yeah, they do their cocaine in Parliament. I honestly, I can't get over the fact. I think about this once a month or so. And sorry to be crass, but do you remember that fucking story where a staffer jacked off on a politician's desk?
Yeah. Yes. Wasn't it a few times as well or something?
And filmed it. Yeah. And we it feels like as a nation we've memory hold that. But by rights, they should have napalmed Parliament and started again. That's really depraved, fucked stuff.
That is pretty, that's insane.
It's really, really fucked that is happening in Parliament. And obviously we all know in context, if that was happening and they were filming it and sending it to each other and laughing about it, it's very normal. Yeah, and we all just went, oh, that one's really bad and he got fired and let's never talk about it again. Our politics is fucked. So that is my weekly affirmation. Jordan, I hope you win and enjoy yourself in Canberra.
Yeah, bring hand sanitizer, wipe down all the desks whenever I sit down.
Oh, what a fucking cesspit. So one thing to sort of kick us off, Celeste, you had a beef between the difference with constitutional reform versus direct democracy. People are getting wrong.
Yeah, I do have a beef. And look, this stems off the back of the fact that somebody mentioned there's an election going on. But yeah, look, I was reading some of the election coverage, and Peter Dutton, in this instance, he was put on the spot, and there were 3 things that he was asked about if he would have a referendum on should they win government. And those 3 things were, and I pulled it up in front of me so I made sure I got this right, polls on Indigenous recognition, 4-year parliamentary terms, and the stripping citizenship of dual nationals. I want to throw in another one to the mix. The other day I was watching the 6 News Senate debates, which Jordan's already appeared on, but I watched the Queensland iteration of it for as long as I could stand, which wasn't terribly long. But in that, the legalized cannabis candidate that they had speaking on it, she mentioned a referendum on the nationalizing of the energy industry. So it was the question was with regards to coal-fired stations versus nuke versus solar. And one of her arguments was that, that we need to install the nationalization of whatever this power source is into the Constitution. Now, I have a hunch, and it was off the back, and I have been corrected by a friend on this to a certain extent, but I am right. It was off the back of the stripping citizenship of the dual nationals. But I have a hunch that what people are talking about when they keep calling for a referendum on every single bloody thing nowadays, and it does come up over and over again following the voice referendum, is that what people are actually wanting or actually looking for is some sort of mode of direct democracy. And potentially similar to, I'm sorry, my dog's just decided to choke on me at this time, which is...
Yeah, for the people listening, Celeste's dog has been on her lap the entire recording. It's so fucking cute. But then, just started grumbling and getting involved. Hell yeah.
Yeah, look, she'll probably add her commentary as I start to get fired up. But, perhaps off the back of these sort of populist ideas and individualist sort of notions of how politics should run. But there have been parties over in various European parliaments that have, gotten some sort of vestige of power by saying that they're going to poll their constituents on every single issue and go from there. That will be their stand. It's the direct democracy model. And to me, it just illustrates a point that I've argued over and over again. People have no idea what the system is. They have no idea what the Constitution is. They seem to think that the Constitution is akin to the American Bill of Rights or similar, and not just a document that dictates how dictates how the government is run. The stripping of the dual national ones jumped out at me because immediately my thought was, and I know that it has come up for discussion before, but my thought was, well, that's actually a legislative change. That's the idea would be that, that would be something that they could take up via legislation, whether it passes or not, or whether it's found to, in some way contravene constitutional ideas of citizenship is a different matter. But the stripping of dual nationals for whatever criminal reasons that a coalition government will come up with, or indeed a Labor government will come up with, that's legislation. People are actually really confusing the two and seem to believe that we need a referendum on absolutely everything at this point in time, because they don't get it.
There is like, and I hate to be that guy though, as the person who's admitted as a lawyer and did some constitutional law and stuff. The legalized cannabis person is still insane, so that's great. We can still do that, but I think that whole, we need a referendum to nationalize the electricity or whatever the energy source is, that comes from the fucking banks nationalization case when Chifley in 1948, I think, tried to nationalise the Bank of New South Wales, and it failed in the High Court because of the on just terms bit of the Constitution. But they, like, what that case also determined was you could establish a national bank. You just can't take one and make it, nationalise it. You can't steal it and then nationalise it. So, like, we could create whatever and nationalize it and all that kind of stuff. We don't need a referendum for that. But ever since then, the governments of the day have been like, well, we can't nationalize anything. We'd need a referendum to do that. That's what they're trying to make us think. So, and they're lying to us. We could establish, just like the Victorian government established the SEC again, even though it's, fake. But like, yeah, sorry, I just wanted to add that bit of context for anyone who cared, which is probably 0 people listening.
No, bullshit.
No,
People listen to Australian politics podcast, fucking all over it.
Look, it's totally interesting, and it's good to have that context. It's also good to note that when it comes to citizenship and dual citizenship, the main thing that I can think of the main thing that I am across when it comes to the Constitution as it stands right now is the fact that dual citizens are not allowed to run for Parliament under Section 44 or the exact wordings of those with what
Allegiances
split allegiances or loyalties.
Loyalties, yeah.
Yeah. But that is one of the key ones that I can think of that exists around dual citizens in the Constitution. And the reason why that exists was because they didn't want brown people running for Parliament.
Literally, every single prime minister was a dual citizen prior to that, but they were from a white country, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Also, let's be real as well. Like, if we were taking that seriously, a lot of the members of Labor and Liberal couldn't run for this election given their clear fucking allegiance to Israel. Like, come on, guys, it's fake. Like, they choose when they can deploy it.
Yeah. But more to the point, though, I think that I am onto something with this idea of direct democracy. I think that in a time when politics has become incredibly populist, where you've got, figures like Trump able to regain stuff, where you've got examples across the world where people are just being polled on whatever policy there is and able to get somebody to represent that view in Parliament. People are kind of looking for that. And if I was to state what I think the answer to that is, it would be that we need in this country to actually make seats as marginal as possible and force the sitting members who win them to listen to the constituents. We need to again, as I keep saying, break the back of the two-party system that exists at the moment and the party room dynamics that influence so much of the legislation. Because right now, people's allegiance when they get into Parliament is to their parties. It's not, they don't represent the people, and people are looking for that representation. But if they're looking for it in the Constitution via constant referendums or via direct democracy models like that sort of polling model that does exist elsewhere in the world, they're looking in the wrong places in this system.
It is interesting you say that. You might remember a short-lived party in Australia, the Online Direct Democracy Empowering the People Party.
Yes, I do.
So just having a quick look at the Wikipedia page here, Online Direct Democracy (bracket Empowering the People (bracket) was a registered Australian political party. It was briefly named Climate Action, Immigration Action, Accountable Politicians, each one of them with an exclamation mark, from January 2019 to September 2019, and had previously been known as Senator Online. So formed in 2007 was this party called Senator Online, and they were never going to have any policies as a party. The whole thing was that they pledged that if they got in, you would go to their website and you would vote in polls, and the person in Parliament would just do what that poll said that they had to do, which is such an incredible, like, do you guys remember the show Beyond Tomorrow and Beyond 2000? That show that was
Beyond 2000, yes.
Yeah, yep. And it was a show, in the 90s. Yeah, Jordan, there was this thing called the 2000s.
Don't remember it.
There was this show in the 90s that was like in 97 onwards of like, here's what the world's going to be like after the year 2000. And it was like a fax machine only half the size of your house. Wow. And it just Senator Online, has this exact same vibes of like, like lasers and sharp silver lining and like the future of democracy. Everyone will vote on an internet poll. And that's how we get. Anyway, it went nowhere. They were deregistered in 2020, which is a fucking long time for these guys to come through. But just laughing about the Queensland Senate debate you were talking about, and Jordan, you went on one as well. I'm starting to feel like federal Senate elections are turning into the local council elections at a larger scale, because that's where the kooks can come and go. And so every major party, it's like there's that amazing footage in Britain where there is this one kook in Britain who runs every election, and he wears like a wizard outfit or something.
Yeah.
Bin face or something.
Yeah.
As well.
And so, but the tradition in Britain is that every politician in a ward, in an area, has to stand on stage when they announce the winner. And so you see like Labour and Tory politicians in Britain having to stand there next to this dude in a wizard outfit.
Or it was Rishi.
Rishi had to. Yeah, Rishi. So it was Rishi Sunak. It was. Yeah. And just having to be like, well, this is democracy, good stuff. And I feel like the Senate federally is turning into that now, where you do have like Labour and Liberal, and you got these young parties coming through, like Vic Socialists, and you got the racists, and you've got the fucking like Clive Palmer, and then you've got climate action, immigration action, accountable politicians. Just for listeners who might be new to democracy or to the 2010s, depending on how young you are, a pretty good heuristic, I feel, is when to determine whether or not to give a person your vote in the Senate or a party your vote. If there is an exclamation mark in their name, they're not good. That's just a that's a pretty good thing to watch out for. It's someone who has just sort of gone, you know what's going to get people's attention? An exclamation mark.
Exclamation marks are the red flags of the Senate ballot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
On your point too, Celeste, I feel like there is something to this idea of, calling for a referendum on everything. Kind of strikes me as how every scandal is scandal gate, and they put gate at the end of it. I feel like it's talking to like a dearth of ideas this election. Because the other thing I've been looking at with this run up, and it sort of came to me in a horrible like a sewerage brainwave, hit me like an opening sluice, was the recognition, sharp and in focus, that the whole fucking reason Labor are running the like don't be Dutton. Don't rely on Dutton. Get Dutton out. Focus on Dutton. Dutton.
Don't risk Dutton.
Don't risk Dutton.
Don't risk.
Yep. Don't risk Dutton. They've got the union members out in the shirts campaigning on don't risk Dutton. And the reason they're doing that is because last election they run on we're not ScoMo. And they literally have no other thing to run on this election. They have no ideas on how to campaign. They have no vision for the country in the future. They have no good policies that they could have done this time that they didn't. They've got nothing to announce except for stealing Greens policies. They don't want to do anything major. So the only thing they can think of is like, fuck, pointing to the Liberal leader last time worked. Let's do it again. And they probably have some fucking polling that shows that Dutton is unpopular and no one likes him, blah, blah, blah. But it feels so both bored and resigned to the doldrums of history, I feel. I feel like everyone at the top has given up. And even and so even our journos are just like, another referendum? We just did that. That's something in my memory. Do we want to do another? Do we want to do like a big infrastructure rebuild? Nah, just don't vote for the Liberal guy, eh? And fucking Peter Dutton, just thinking of this now, Peter Dutton has been rolling out policies literally from the Howard era in the run up to this election because he's got no idea on what to do. He's gone, we'll do nuclear again. Like, I feel like we are in this like slow boiling miasma that is dragging the country not even backwards, but down almost. Just this complete lack of enthusiasm from our ruling class to do things. I don't know. It's I've got the vibe of like, when all your managers checked out when everyone knew the company was going to be like bought off and they're all going to lose their jobs. It feels like we're at that point as a whole fucking nation.
Yeah. Well, what's just occurred to me is you said that, and look, the second thing I ever voted in was a referendum. So the first thing was a state election as a young voter. The second thing was the Republican referendum. So
no way.
So these are I'm. As I can say, I am that old. So I got to go through that process. But when you think about that, that's like, 23 years. Sorry, no, my maths is shit. 25 years between referendums, or referenda, rather. These are supposed to be rare events to update a living document. But I think that the reason why it keeps being brought up, and you're talking don't risk Dutton and all that, is that referendums are yes, no. So this is kind of like a yes-no dynamic playing out with regards to political candidates and everything else. Like, you know, yes, Dutton, no, Dutton, yes, this one, no, this one, you know, it's really basic, uninvolved politics.
Yeah.
When people are actually wanting to be involved in politics and feeling disempowered by the system. This is weird.
I do wonder how much is that sort of just like, you know, simple answers. Yes, no. Journalist class. Do you want to work on anything? Nah, just anyway. Fuck them. Yeah. Also, I wasn't here last week, but I can't believe you guys didn't talk about the budget. Anyway,
fucking why? Fucking let's not. Can we just?
All right, we've got some listener questions that we've been threatening to read out for a very long time, but I reckon now is a good enough time, especially with one of our hosts not being here, is a really good time to...
Fuck you, Tom.
Don't speak ill of the dead.
All right, so we've got a question here from Anonymous. I don't know if they're anonymous, but we got it sent through on what is clearly a pseudonym, so I'll just say Anonymous.
Okay.
But, all right, question. I live in the former Alan Tudge stronghold of Aston, out of East Melbourne, and have solidly put Greens 1 for years, and then whatever semi-progressive, not fash parties until we get inevitable cookers and Liberal candidate. As we can no longer exhaust our vote after 1 in the lower house, it means that my vote always ends up with Labor. As lovely as Mary Doyle is away from political discussion, her party has still been heinous monsters and does not deserve my vote. I am likely to not vote in the lower house, but definitely vote in the upper house on your pingers. Is this a justified action? This isn't out of apathy or laziness, but a political statement to show Labor that they can't rely on the progressive vote and still continue to be a centre-right party. I'm involved in local mutual aid and always on hand to lend 100 kilos of Luke meat to people and protesters under threat. So, basically, is it a justified action this election to basically donkey vote the lower house, given that the way our system works, the vote eventually has to get to presumably Labor or Liberal if you were in one of those so-called safe seats?
Firstly, I want to say this person sounds like awesome. This person sounds fucking sick.
Yeah. They're engaged and they care.
Yeah.
Yep,
Like that's
already perfect.
100%. But also, like, this is my personal opinion. Like, obviously, vested interest, absolutely vote me in the upper house. Fuck yeah, 100%. But, like, in the lower house, if you've got a Greens candidate and, you know, there's no one to the left of the Greens, I would still vote for them. It does a few things, even if your vote's going to end up with the Labor Party. And, like, yeah, actually, this isn't like I would still, like, I am going to do that in my electorate. That's how I'm going to vote. Like, obviously for myself in the upper house. I don't know how that's allowed, but that's kind of sick.
It's going to be so good. Instead, you get there and you're like, nah, we can't risk Dutton. I'm going to vote Labor in the upper house.
And then I'm voting, like, there's no socialist candidate. There's no one to the left of the Greens in the lower house. I'm voting for the Greens in the lower house because, like, sure, even if my vote ends up getting Labor elected, it gives the Greens money, first of all, and it doesn't give it to the Labor Party because they don't fucking need any more money. Like, the Greens obviously have more money than us, for example, but I'd still, if my little $5 a vote money is going to someone, I don't want it going to Labor, and I sure as fuck don't want it going to the Liberals. So my first preference, which is where you get the $5, will go to the Greens in the lower house.
So let's just pause on that point for a minute, because that was going to be one of my points as well. And I don't think a lot of people know this. We have a preferential voting system in this country. You can't waste your vote. It always goes down further and further. And, you know, that's great. But we do have a system where political parties get paid based on the first party preference vote. So when whoever you vote number 1, if that party meets a certain threshold of number 1 votes, they get money per vote. So this is a really good reason to vote for the parties that you genuinely want to help, even if you don't think they have a chance of winning. Because if enough people do that and it gets over a threshold, they get paid a certain amount of money to then do better next election.
As long as they get more than 4% or whatever the fucking threshold is.
Yeah. So in all instances, voting is important to try to get money to the party in your electorate if you like them, if you want them to succeed next election.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is it sends the message. Like Labor will know how many that they got in, not off a primary vote, but off a secondary vote, and they'll know that that's a threat to them at the next election, because look how many votes they got, look how much more money they're going to have next election. So this term they have to do better. They have to, if that, for example, the flow came from the Greens in the lower house for your particular seat, or even my particular seat, they're going to have to respond to that. They're going to see that, I don't want to call it pressure because it's just fucking numbers on a piece of paper. That's not pressure. But that is pressure that they care about, I guess. So maybe it is. But they have to respond. They have to do something that those voters, even though they didn't get their first choice, wanted. And it scares them a bit, and that always makes me happy.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to throw in something that's a little bit variable. And disclosure for the listenership, I have known Mary Doyle for a very long time. So the sitting ALP member I have known. I just, though, while we've been sitting here, I just wanted to pull it up and see whether Aston was being named as a seat that seat that is a safe or is a marginal, because Mary Doyle won it at a by-election, and she won it in what was unexpected. Labor did not expect her to steal it, because it's been 100-odd years since the seat's been stolen at a by-election from a sitting party. Oh, what's the words I'm looking for? We got 2/3 of the team suffering from migraine at the moment. So yeah, I'm
trying to guess who the other one is. Can we wrap this up soon, guys?
Yeah. But yeah, look, the margin in Aston right now is 3.6%, and ABC here in its seat analysis says few believe Labor will hold on to the seat in Melbourne's suburban east at the foothills of the Dandenong Ranges. So with that little bit in mind, I would actually advise that voting in the lower house, yes, there's the points about electoral monies and sending the message and all of that, but maintaining that seat as a marginal seat and ensuring that it isn't just pinched, but it is, perhaps stabilised but kept on that edge, so that there's so that the pressure is being applied with regards to, if Labor do want to hold on to it, they've got to respond to these other views coming through to them, because this is how close it is in this seat. This is all it'll take next election for it to fall and for you to lose, because at the end of the day, what those major parties are playing is a power game. We know this. They need to hold on to that seat. It is one of the ones that is going to send the marginal, or with a minority government and a strong crossbench, which is kind of an outcome we do want on this podcast. But if they don't hold it, it puts them in further threat. So they're going to have to hold it. So I would recommend that you go about your voting, your lower house voting, as you would see fit with regards to numbering left to right or whatever else it is. But keep that in mind, that keeping that seat marginal is actually pretty crucial to the system and getting it to work better for us.
Yeah.
There's also a very slight seat distribution this year compared to 2022, which has a few more Labor polling booths in it as well.
Ooh.
So it could be that could make a difference. Could not, who knows?
Yeah. Now, just to add to that too, it's when you talk about the pressure, Jordan, that comes from, seeing election results. If Labor and Liberal both see that they're winning their safe seats off the back of 6 different redistributions from other people in the lower house, that's all recorded. It's it's public how many times votes get redistributed. Every single vote is counted and then counted and then counted and then counted. So if you go, Greens won, Labor second, because the rest of them are cooked, like totally, that's totally fine. I understand not wanting to give you a vote to a One Nation member, of course. But if you have enough options to put the majors last and still feel comfortable, they will fucking see that. And they have to respond to that. Even if they win, even if a government wins a majority, they will understand that the majority of the fucking electorate do not want this. They will see how far down their primary vote has gone, and it will be harder and harder for them to maintain this veneer that they have a mandate from the people to do things. It will be harder for them to, like you keep saying, Celeste, take seats for granted, which... Yeah. Again, like just to be like super clear, we want them to not take seats for granted because the only way they can not take them for granted is by listening to the people in them. If you have, as you're a political party that's big enough to have safe seats, then you go, all right, these 16 different seats, they're 16 votes, they're 16 points that we have. Don't worry about them. They're locked in, nothing to worry about whatsoever. The calculation is on the fine margins and how can we massage our messaging to specifically go after this one little seat here and what can we finesse? No, fuck that. Every single seat needs to be in play and these parties need to fucking work for us, because if we have a system where we have two major parties, we are already fundamentally in a democracy that isn't working for people. It's fucking absurd to think that we should be resigned to the fact that we get to choose between one party that is slightly closer to our views than the other one, but not really representative of us at all. You cannot fucking tell me that out of everyone in the country, most people are actually aligned with Labor fully and wholeheartedly enough for them to be represented by them. Absolutely fucking not. By rights, every single seat should be an independent and the community should pick someone who represents the community. That's what our entire system is fucking for. We don't have that at the moment. So at the very least, we need to make the parties revert back to that a little bit. We need to make sure that people like Jed Carney can't just fucking lie to us about like, oh, I'm working for change in the background and nothing happens. That's why we want to keep the pressure on. And we do that in this instance by voting. And then, like I always say, we then do shit for the rest of the years between elections where actual political pressure can be applied to our fucking politicians, is what I think. or not, all good if not though. That's all good. This next question from Marie. Hi, thanks for the shout out for questions for the Radical Online podcast. We do that. Thanks for sending one in. All right. I'm interested in what you see as prospects for unified politics on the left in an era of right ascendancy, and if you see that it would be beneficial / possible for the left tendencies to attempt a unified political project, even starting with a campaign. I don't include the Greens in left tendencies, and it goes without saying, I don't mean the ALP either. If you see it as beneficial, what steps do you think need to be taken?
How good again? What a great question.
Turns out like we've got a listenership exclusively of political scientists.
Hard left. We've got hard left listeners. That is great.
So for me in this first one, to take a sort of contrarian initial position, to say that they don't include the Greens in left tendencies, and I think we all agree that we don't mean the ALP either in that, for sure. And given the Greens' recent announcement about wanting to be weapons manufacturers, look, it's starting to go the way of the German Greens for sure. But I will say that internationally, at least, the last example that we had of a, quote, unified politics on the left was what happened in France, where the right was ascendant and basically all of the parties there from the like socialist left all the way to the center left joined up as one big sort of political group, and they worked together to say, I won't run in your seat. You have a better chance of winning there. I'll let you, we as a party will let your party win that seat. You can win this seat with this candidate. We'll win this one with this one, but we'll have a unified front and we'll stop Marine Le Pen and the emergent fascist right in France. We will beat them at the polls. And that was a genuine unified politics.
But I think that's a unified liberalism versus conservatism rather than a unified left. You know what I mean?
Yes, but they don't have a majority of hard left political parties.
Yeah. So, but that's what I mean. That's what this person's asking, though.
But this is what I was going to get into the email, is that if you don't include the Greens in this, then what you are sort of asking is what level, what scale of a unified left, politics. And I would argue that's what we're currently doing. The pro-Palestine rallies that have been happening weekly in Melbourne are an example of this.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But otherwise, what we have had for the longest time are left groups trying their best to make a unified front and not being able to, because we are basically very left of each other and very focused on very specific and bigger ideas in some cases, right? But a unified project, at least off the back of something right now that, we could do pretty quickly, would be a very liberal, very centrist political movement where we would get the political parties together in, again, a watered down fashion. I think that's the issue.
I want to put in my little, obviously it's not the same and it's not the same scale and everything. But where Victorian Socialist is campaigning with Sue Bolton, campaigning for Sue Bolton in Wills, Socialist Alliance, different actual left, I would describe both of these parties. We're campaigning for Sue Bolton in Wills. We're campaigning for Sarah in Corio. And obviously, they're campaigning for us in the upper house. That's a little bit of left unity right there. We're also, the RCO, the Revolutionary Communist Organisation, has just joined Victorian Socialists. So that is three, yes, small, but actual left organisations that have come together in Victoria. The RCO has called for a similar thing in Queensland and all that kind of stuff. But the anti-capitalist left is tiny, but I think it's clear from the context of the email that is what this person is referring to, not the left of the right, the relative left compared to the Liberal Party. That's my interpretation. And I think we're seeing it in terms of a somewhat unified-ish left kind of starting to happen. I think there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of work to get it, all over the country and everything. But I don't think it's unheard of, and I think we might be starting to see something.
Yeah, I hope so. The reason I bring up the milquetoast centrist idea of it is, again, that idea of scale. At what level do we want / need a unified sort of front? The other one I would say, the last time we actually did do it in this country was marriage equality. That was pretty clearly an idea that anyone vaguely left of center was just all for it. And even then, a lot of center-right people just had this idea of just you know what? Nah, they should be able to get married.
Well, marriage is a fundamentally conservative position, though. So it was one that could pull from the right.
Yeah, that's true. And also even the thing that I was talking about, that's really electoralism. That's only from an electoral perspective. In reality, every day, every week, there is a unified left, as you mentioned on Sunday at the Palestine rallies, and stuff like that, and including the left members of the Greens as well, the actual left of the Greens. So yeah, we're getting there. Electorally, no. Or maybe a little bit. We're starting to get there. Maybe we will eventually. Maybe the next election. Who knows? But yeah, there is a unified left once a week at least.
Well, so the email specifically says, though, what do you see as prospects for unified politics on the left? And would it be beneficial for the left tendencies to attempt a unified political project? So you were talking about at the scale that the socialists and communists are doing it. And so that's what I'm saying. But they don't include the Green in that. And I think at this stage, and Celeste, I'd love to hear your opinion as well. What do you think, again, at different levels of scale, the prospect would be of the Greens unifying with a whole bunch of other groups to form a bigger political party, or a whole bunch of left parties wanting to glob onto the Greens and strengthen that from a left-based perspective?
Yeah. Look, there's two components here that are jumping out at me, because one is the unified left in general, and how we work with each other as lefties, and ideas of consensus. You know, and then the other part of it is the the electoralism side of that, and you know, talking around that. I would state, like, you know, there have long been a lot of left-wing people within the Greens, if we're going to talk about them to start with. But the idea that the Greens are on the left isn't actually a given, and more how it's panned out in Australia is that, you know, what was traditionally sort of working class votes or ideas have just been neglected by within the electoral system, I should say, been neglected by the Labor Party, and therefore people with social progressive issues have looked for that in other parties, and the Greens have therefore tried to take up some of those social progressive stands, and to a certain extent they have. To a certain extent, maybe not, but you know, that's the toing and froing of electoralism. With regards to leftist movements and people being able to achieve maybe some consensus or some movement building from below that has impact, I'd say that we do see that happen in ways that you two have already described. There does need to be more of it. We do need to get better with regards to ideas of building consensus and building movements. Because a lot of the time, our ideas of consensus have been informed, have been squashed by the electoral version of consensus, which is actually party room dynamics. We've got to be able to, as leftists, sit in a room, thrash out the ideas, have a disagreement, and then come to a position that broadly represents all those sorts of people in that room. And we do see that those coalitions of people getting together for Palestine or for Invasion Day or, you know, for whatever else. So yeah, it's just more focusing on grassroots, on grassroots conversations and the ability to actually get in a room and have robust conversations, disagreements, debates, whatever else. Not being, oh God, I can't believe this is going to come out of my mouth because I hate the way the right wing says this, but not being so pure in our thoughts that all of a sudden people are just discounted. We've actually got to build consensus from the basis of this working class person and this migrant person have this in common. Let's go from there rather than
don't expect everyone to be at the same, you know, theoretical point as you. 100%.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like as well, the thing that like it always comes back to, at least with it was four of us. Oh, well, the three of us now.
Rip.
Is just this notion too of like, talking about this building of a unified left political party. It's like, I'm less interested in that because, as I always go back to, Malcolm Turnbull is officially the one that enabled marriage equality to take place. It's like, we could have the Greens and Labor hashing it out in minority government. We could have Labor versus Liberal as the two only forces here. Or we could have a grand unified leftist political party, which genuinely represents like the working class. But I guarantee, even if that party existed and then got in, they would require constant fucking bullying from the rank and file and the base and the voters to make sure they stayed on fucking target and did what we wanted. As anyone who's been involved in a few different unions would know, sometimes you have to kick the union execs' asses to do exactly what the workers fucking want. That's an ever-present problem. And so we have to keep in mind that real power, and again, real consensus first off, and then real power is exerted from outside Parliament, and we can still build up these things. And so that was sort of what you were talking about as well, Jordan. But like, it is important to have, if we have a political system and we have elections, that we have parties or we have at least politicians, and that's the levers of power, sure. But really, we need to make sure that our fundamentals are in order first, and that's everything outside of Parliament. Like you kept saying, Celeste, the grassroots, that's the important shit. And I, honest to God, feel like, to more or less a degree, if we had super strong unions again in this country, if we had super active community groups and activist groups, again, working in coalition with each other, then we could bully Labor to do shit pretty easily if power was really wielded properly outside of Parliament. So I feel like this unified left party will come out of really strong work outside of Parliament. And that's the problem at the moment, is we have a really apathetic population, which I fucking get, because I'm apathetic as well, because look at the fucking options that we have. Look at our material conditions. We need to reignite that fire. And from that, the parties will fucking follow, I hope.
Yeah. I think, and like going back to the question, if we want like a political unified left, like, and I'm assuming that means like electoral, then and that this person doesn't consider the Greens to be left, then we've got two parties to the left of the Greens. That's Socialist Alliance and Victorian Socialists, and we don't run in every electorate. There's only two of us. To the right of the Greens, fucking 600.
Everyone else.
There are so many parties. So like it's a lot easier to get a unified, clump of whatever the fuck that is, because there's just more of them, and because there's so many, there's a lot that are really close together. Look at the Libs and the Teals and the Libs and Labor even. That's difficult, but like I believe in a unified left for sure. We had a little bit of that when we had Victorian Socialists and Socialist Alliance in the same thing. But like I also believe in like not just electoralism and whatever, but also electoralism, but like a system where we can vote once every 3 years, like participate in that illusion of democracy that we're given in bourgeois democracy, but like for the ability for party members to recall representatives if they're not representing you properly mid-election, anytime. Like politicians shouldn't be paid more than a worker, and if they're doing a shit job, the people who represented them should be able to recall them at any point and replace them with another representative. That's a system that I believe in. Obviously it doesn't work in our parliamentary system, but like that's something that we'd all believe in, I'm sure.
Jordan, it sounds like you're calling for a referendum.
Would you believe? Look, if I was gonna call for a referendum, I would have so many little minutia to adjust.
I was going to ask, actually, if we all had a referendum, what would it be?
Yeah. Well, so actually, on this little segue, in Switzerland, Celeste, individuals can propose amendments as long as they get a certain amount of signatures and stuff like that. You can just be like, I reckon this should be a law, or this should be a change to our constitution. Then you get 100,000 people, I think it is. I don't know. Probably depends on which canton you're in. But yeah, that's literally something that you can do. I think that's kind of sick. But yeah,
so we should have a referendum on whether we can have
a referendum on the way that we do referendums.
Yes.
The final referendum.
Yeah. I think I'd have a referendum to abolish the Constitution, replace it with a better one.
Oh God! Like there are a number of things that I get rid of in 100%. Well, get rid of
quickly.
I'd hope that would be gotten rid of through the referendum process. Like Section 25, is it, that still stands in there that says that there's the right to exclude peoples of various races from voting. That can fucking go. That needs to go. The fact that we've still got those racist sections in the Constitution. This is why I've been so full on about talking about this for such a long time. Like, people were talking about the Constitution as if it's some fluffy bunny equality document, and it's full of that sort of crap. There is the right to stop people from voting on the basis of race. Section 44 is my big fascination, though, because as well as the right to exclude dual citizens, which in a world as it stands at this point in time, I believe had no place decades ago, let alone now. That needs to go. But there's all these other things like is an undischarged bankrupt insolvent. Convicted, attained of treason or has been convicted and is under sentence. So essentially section 44's no poors, no crims, no brown people. There's a lot of things that I would change within that via a referendum.
I would instantiate the philosopher king model of governance, I think.
Please elaborate.
It's essentially where Plato or Aristotle, I don't remember, had this idea that each nation should be run by I think it's 3 philosopher kings for balance, and they make all of the sort of rules and ideas and whatnot. So I think someone with at least a master's in philosophy from Monash might be a good candidate for that sort of thing. I reckon. That's what I reckon would change, and then from there we can figure out the details.
If you don't know.
If you don't know, let me vote for you. That's the philosopher king promise. If you don't know, don't worry about it. That's the slogan. That's the slogan. If you don't know, don't worry about it. It's just me winking on a poster.
That's pretty good. It's probably more effective than the Dutton one.
All right, I want to close out the show with this email that we got. It's not a question per se, but fuck, it's cool, and it warmed my heart, and it's super rad to hear about, and hopefully it will spur other people on to do stuff as well. But we got this email in from Gus. Hey all, first time, long time, and all that. I wanted to let you know that you've motivated at least one person to actually get off their ass and go do something. This week, I volunteered with the Greens, and it was my first political activity ever. Not sure if they're the final destination for me, but I went along following your suggestion from a few weeks ago that those are the places where you can meet other left-minded people. And it was sick. I learned a shitload about how actual people in my area think about politics. So yeah, just wanted to pass that on. The first step is always the hardest or whatever, and I've done that. I'm signed on for a few more activities in the lead up to the election, and credit for my decision to get politically active rather than sit at home and have a sook is largely due to the good work you're all doing. Cheers. Fuck, that's good. And yet again, the fact that our listeners are so fucking cool that they email in and say, I volunteered for the Greens. It was my first political activity. It was so good. It's the first time I've ever done it. And I'm already not sure if the Greens are the final destination that I'll end up at politically.
Yeah.
Yes! Fuck yeah. I love
good.
that so much, Gus.
Like obviously, give Vic Sock a go. Give it a crack. Just one go. But like, that's sick. Like, you got up and you did something, and that's literally what it's about. That's fucking, like, we don't want to be here complaining on the internet, even though I think all 3 of us are actually very good at that. But it's not all that we do. And that's the most important bit. So fuck yeah, go off, Gus.
I just love the name Gus too. It's a very good name, Good on you, Gus. Well done.
Strong Gus is out there hitting the pavement, door knocking. Fuck
more Gus's getting out there is what I say. Yeah.
I just, like for me, I don't know if I've actually said this on the pod. I've definitely talked to you guys about it, but one of my motivations for just producing this shit, anything, podcast, online stuff, whatever, activism, all that. Producing any sort of content for me is just countering the amount of shit that's out there. Yeah. So, like, one of the things that has always motivated me is the Young IPA podcast. Total shit podcast. They have no charisma and they spread gobshite. It's horrible. Penny Wong's Instagram account, the videos get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views. I want to do something to at least counteract that and balance it out in a little way. So to read that I'm not just putting some countering noise into the void, but that something that we've done has gotten one person to go, fuck it, all right, I'll go and do something. And then has had a fucking great experience. It's so vindicating and reifying, and it makes me enthusiastic to keep doing not just this, but offline stuff as well. because it does feel good. If anyone is listening, I need you to know that you can do things and you will feel effective and you will feel positive. And when you work with others, especially, you will stop feeling as bad. You will still know how bad shit is, but you will feel fucking determined is the huge difference. You will stop wallowing and you will start getting fucking fiery about shit because you can see how change happens. You can feel how it works. And it's the best feeling on earth.
Well, you also don't know from taking that first step who else you'll compel into action. This is, like Gus going out there and doing that could then lead to somebody asking a question and finding out more and going and doing similar somewhere else or finding their own spot. Like there's this chain reaction. It's the same reason why I ended up on the internet, carving out a space in the hope that it created somewhere where people could agree, disagree, but views or whatever else that was not the political norm, was outside of that, could be interacted with, could be discussed, could get other spaces springing up around it, responding to it. Things can be compelled. You can compel other people just through doing that really small thing. It's incredible to watch.
Yeah, totally. On you, Gus.
Fuck yeah, on you, Gus. Also, send more questions if you've got them.
Do you want to take us out, Jordan?
I don't know how to. I keep forgetting the email, and I've done it twice now. Forgotten the email and been like, Mitch,
making me fucking put it in when I'm doing the edit. Do it, Jordan.
Please
do it.
Send your emails to this email address, Mitch.
You're already acting like a politician. Awesome.
No comment.
If you have some questions for us that you'd like us to answer, if you've got some amazing comments like that, if you disagree with us on anything, something we've talked about a lot, send in some disagreements. We will read them out. We'll hash it out. We'll probably still be right. But look, send us your disagreements. Send anything to alpdotgov@proton.me. I will also say someone has sent us some incredible screenshots of what a certain Tim Wilson gets up to on the Liberal pages, on the Meet the Candidate pages. I'll be posting some of that stuff, so keep an eye out on the social media. I'll be posting that shit soon. But send us fucking anything. alpdotgov@proton.me, and you'll listen to us have a chat again next week.
Love you all. Yeah, I'd get rid of the monarch as well. That'd be a nice little easy one. Just fuck off. Thank you. Oh, Celeste, that looked painful.
It was. I had a migraine ripple, and it was brought on by Monarch.
Sorry, it's my bad.
It was so timed. It was just sort of like, that's kind of beautiful, actually. But yeah,
I probably do that a fair bit as a white South African. that reaction from people when I say certain words, physical pain.